A lot of people idolize the relationships from the old days, around the 50s and the 60s. People don't know how to stay together anymore. That's when women were women and men were men. But through the honesty of a lot of people who came before us, we've come to learn that those relationships weren't all they were cracked up to be at all. However, how many of you have been blessed with the story of a woman who went against the grain and broke the mold even back then? Well, I made a list of some things that we can learn from those trailblazing women. Let's dive in. Number one, they were 100% themselves, and they didn't care what anyone thought. If they weren't these sweet little southern peaches or debutantes, they didn't act like it. They were who they were. And if they were lucky, they had parents that allowed that. If someone fell in love with this type of woman, what you see is what you get, and there are no surprises. The next thing, they were single until they were married. There was none of this, we're in the talking phase and now I'm gonna make your lunch for you and fold your underwear for you. Absolutely not. And a lot of those women had a Rolodex, a rotation of men that they entertained until the right one came along, made his intentions clear, and that is the one that they accepted. Their boundaries were ironclad, okay? If there were things that they didn't want to do, or things that they didn't feel comfortable doing, or they didn't feel comfortable doing certain things until a certain milestone was reached or a certain amount of time, they didn't do those things. And they would dump you and move on quickly if you couldn't respect that. I'll admit it, I've done this in the past where it could be anything. And you do it because you don't want to lose this guy. You're afraid that it's going to be your last chance to get someone. Well, these types of women, they didn't care. Oh, well, too bad for you. They wouldn't betray themselves for the sake of keeping a man in their life. The fourth thing, you had to be making enough money to support a wife and children. There was none of this, oh, well, he's in between jobs and times is hard, so let's go ahead and do the damn thing. Absolutely not. It was not a respectable thing to have a family that you could not support. If you came to somebody for their daughter's hand in marriage and you were not able to support a family, they would look at you like you were insane. And I feel like as women, we make too many excuses. Well, you got to understand the economy, and COVID was a while ago and people are still struggling and the man is holding him back. No! If you can't afford a family, why on earth, why in hell are you trying to make one? It's common sense. It's just common sense. The next thing, these women never stopped learning. They never stopped bettering themselves. They were always reading books. If new neighbors moved in, they were trying to introduce themselves to the neighbors and get to know new people. They were throwing little soirees and get-togethers. They were taking some kind of class, some kind of aerobics class or dance class. They never stopped learning. They never stopped having hobbies. They were always sharpening the sword of their brain and trying to learn new information and become better people. A lot of us, once we get into a relationship, we develop brain rot because our only priority at that time is how to take care of this man, how to keep him happy, how to keep him, period. And it's really sad. The next thing is they maintained their friendships with women. They understood how important it was to have that connection with other women, whether they met up and got their hair done at the same time, or their husbands would go to work and all the wives would gather together and talk shit and, compare notes about what happened during the week or whatever, or they would go to a movie or something, but they never disconnected that connection with their friends. A lot of us have this programmed into our head that a man is all we need. You and me against the world, baby. Yeah. Anything could happen to that man. Anything could happen to that relationship. And when the crap hits the fan, it is so nice to be able to fall and your sisters catch you. Everybody has a story about how they can't trust women and how they can't get along with women and how they can't make female friends. Yet they will allow men to put hands and feet on them, as one of my mutuals on TikTok says. They will allow men to put hands and feet on them and do whatever they can to uphold those relationships, but will forsake any kind of connection with women. Are all women amazing people that can be trusted? Absolutely not. I have been betrayed and stabbed in the back by women who I thought I can trust. However, on the same note, women have also been there to save my life consistently in times of crisis. Men consistently have caused those crises to occur. The next thing, those women continued to take care of themselves. I mentioned this on a video that I posted, that one of the top 5 things that women say to me at the end of their relationships or at the end of their marriage is, I cannot believe I stopped taking care of myself. Once we get into a relationship, a woman that used to be disciplined and get up and exercise or exercise after work or go for a walk, she gives up all that stuff so that she can accommodate and take care of her man. The man 9 times out of 10 will probably continue to go to the gym until he gets tired of it. But a lot of us meet these men and we just give up everything. Whenever women tell me, oh, I used to look like this back in the day, I used to take such good care of my hair back in the day, I used to wear makeup, I used to do this, I used to do that. Not that you have to do those things, don't put words in my mouth, but the number one common denominator, the moment all those things stopped, was when they got with a man, when they married that man, when they moved in with that man. That is the moment that taking care of themselves ceased to exist. But these women that we're talking about in the video, these trailblazing women back in the days of old, they kept their hair appointments. They still went to, I don't know what kind of exercises they did back then. They still did things to take care of themselves. They made it a point to do their skincare routine at night and in the morning, or to do whatever it was that made them feel good about themselves and comfortable in their skin. The next thing is, to a certain extent, as much as possible back in those days, those women were self-sufficient, okay? They knew how to build a house. They could make pancakes, cupcakes, biscuits, and go out and build a whole barn and have dinner served. They could take care of themselves. Although a lot of women were dependent on men financially, they could still get things done as much as humanly possible for that time on their own, and it wasn't a situation where they were 100% reliant on men for every single thing. They would always know how to take care of themselves and how to do what they needed to do to take care of their kids. The next thing, they were willing to be alone before they would ever allow themselves or their children to suffer in a relationship. They would go against the grain and the advice of their preachers, their family members, and end that situation and live on their own and struggle to do what they had to do if it meant them having peace and not being with some loser who felt that they could take advantage of them or their children. And lastly, these amazing women were honest with younger generations about what marriage was actually like for them. And you have all these people glorifying those past relationships without understanding what a lot of those women actually had to go through, and the truth of how a lot of those men actually were back then. We see how the women dressed back then and how the men dressed back then, and we get all whoop-de-woo delusional, and we miss out on the fact that a lot of those men were abusive and had families on the other side of town. There was a lot of horrible things going on within those families. And even if it wasn't to that extreme, a lot of those women were exhausted because they had to balance everything on their shoulder to try to keep their men happy. When I asked my late grandma Ethel when I was a teenager, what should I do so I can hurry up and find a husband one day? She was like, don't even worry about that. Travel, meet new people, and learn things. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time. Bye.